Lingue originali.
Con Marco Piovaz continuiamo a leggere le vicende di questa insolita lettrice, an uncommon reader, perché The Uncommon Reader è il titolo del racconto breve di Alan Bennett che abbiamo cominciato a leggere nel mese di gennaio e che ci accompagnerà anche nel corso degli episodi di febbraio. Bentornati a Lingue Originali, io sono Dario Albertini nel ruolo di facilitatore per chi non ha tutta questa dimestichezza con la lingua inglese oggi, con quella tedesca domani, a darvi qualche cenno per facilitare la comprensione o semplicemente per introdurre la lettura di Marco Piovaz. La sovrana lettrice è il titolo di questo racconto breve nell'edizione italiana pubblicata da Adelphi. Ricordo sempre all'inizio di ogni puntata giusto l'incipit, come inizia la storia, perché non voglio assolutamente né condizionarvi né, come si dice, spoilerare il resto del racconto, che fa veramente sorridere. Siamo a Buckingham Palace, guardate un po', e la regina Elisabetta II, buonanima, ormai è incuriosita dal rumore di un camioncino che si ferma all'interno di un cortile, non lontano dalle cucine. Esce con aria regale, evidentemente un po' stupita, se non addirittura infastidita, e vede questo camioncino che non è altro che una biblioteca viaggiante, il bibliotecario ambulante e, oibò, un addetto alle sue cucine che ha dei libri in mano. Vi lascio immaginare, orrore, no? Oh my God, avrà detto la regina. E io qui mi fermo e vi invito all'ascolto, dando linea e microfono, come sempre, a Marco Piovaz.
One of the Queen's recurrent royal responsibilities was to open Parliament, an obligation she had never previously found particularly burdensome and actually rather enjoyed. To be driven down the Mall on a bright autumn morning, even after 50 years, was something of a treat. But not anymore. She was dreading the 2 hours the whole thing was due to take, though fortunately they were in the coach, not in the open carriage, so she could take along her book. She got quite good at reading and waving, the trick being to keep the book below the level of the window and to keep focused on it and not on the crowds. The Duke didn't like it one bit, of course, but goodness, it helped. Which was all very well, except it was only when she was actually in the coach, with the procession drawn up in the palace forecourt and ready for the off, that as she put on her glasses, she realized she'd forgotten the book. And while the Duke fumes in the corner and the postilions fidget, the horses shift and the harness clinks, Norman is rung on the mobile. The guardsmen stand at ease and the procession waits. The officer in charge looks at his watch. 2 minutes late. Knowing nothing displeases Her Majesty more, and knowing nothing of the book, he does not look forward to the repercussions that must inevitably follow. But here is Norman skittering across the gravel with the book thoughtfully hidden in a shawl, and off they go. Still, it is an ill-tempered royal couple that is driven down the Mall, the Duke waving viciously from his side, the Queen listlessly from hers, and at some speed too, as the procession tries to pick up the 2 minutes that have been lost. At Westminster, she popped the offending book behind a cushion in the carriage, ready for the journey back. Mindful as she sat on the throne and embarked on her speech of how tedious was the twaddle she was called on to deliver, and that this was actually the only occasion when she got to read aloud to the nation. My government will do this, my government will do that. It was so barbarously phrased and wholly devoid of style or interest that she felt it demeaned the very act of reading itself. With this year's performance even more garbled than usual, as she too tried to pick up the missing couple of minutes. It was with some relief that she got back into the coach and reached behind the cushions for her book. It was not there. Steadfastly waving as they rumbled along, she surreptitiously felt behind the other cushions. "You are not sitting on it?" "Sitting on what?" "My book." "No, I am not. Some British Legion people here, and wheelchairs. Wave, for God's sake." When they arrived at the palace, she had a word with Grant, the young footman in charge, who said that while Ma'am had been in the Lords, the sniffer dogs had been round and security had confiscated the book. He thought it had probably been exploded. "Exploded?" said the Queen. "But it was Anita Bruckner." The young man, who seemed remarkably undeferential, said security may have thought it was a device. The Queen said, "Yes, that is exactly what it is. A book is a device to ignite the imagination." The footman said, "Yes, Mum." It was as if she was talking to his grandmother, and not for the first time the Queen was made unpleasantly aware of the hostility her reading seemed to arouse. "Very well," she said. "Then you should inform security that I shall expect to find another copy of the same book, vetted and explosive-free, waiting on my desk tomorrow morning. And another thing, the carriage cushions are filthy. Look at my gloves." Her Majesty departed. "Fuck," said the footman, fishing out the book from where he had been told to hide it down the front of his breeches. But of the lateness of the procession, to everyone's surprise, nothing was officially said. This dislike of a Queen's reading was not confined to the household. Whereas in the past, walkies had meant a noisy and unrestrained romp in the grounds, these days, once she was out of sight of the house, Her Majesty sank into the nearest seat and took out her book. Occasionally she threw a bored biscuit in the direction of the dogs, but there was none of that ball-throwing, stick-fetching and orchestrated frenzy that used to enliven their perambulations. Indulged and bad-tempered though they were, the dogs were not unintelligent, so it was not surprising that in a short space of time they came to hate books as the spoil-sports they were, and always have been. Did Her Majesty ever let a book fall to the carpet, it would straightway be leaped on by any attendant dog, worried and slavered over and borne to the distant reaches of the palace, or wherever so it could be satisfyingly torn apart. The James Stade Black Prize notwithstanding. Ian McEwan had ended up like this, and even A.S. Byatt. Patron of the London Library though she was, Her Majesty regularly found herself on the phone apologising to the renewals clerk for the loss of another volume. The dogs disliked Norman too, and insofar as the young man could be blamed for some at least of the Queen's literary enthusiasm, Sir Kevin didn't care for him either. He was also irritated by his constant proximity, because while he was never actually in the room when the private secretary talked to the Queen, he was always within call. They were discussing a royal visit to Wales due to take place in a fortnight's time. In the middle of being taken through her programme, a ride on a super tram, a ukulele concert, and a tour round the cheese factory, Her Majesty suddenly got up and went to the door. "Norman?" Sir Kevin heard a chair scrape as Norman got up. "We're going to Wales in a few weeks' time." "Bad luck, Mum." The Queen smiled back at the unsmiling Sir Kevin. "Norman is so cheeky. Now, we've read Dylan Thomas, haven't we? And some John Cowper poems. And Ian Morris we've read. But who else is there?" "You could try Kilvert, Ma'am," said Norman. "Who's he?" "A vicar, Ma'am, 19th century. Lived on the Welsh borders and wrote a diary. Fond of little girls." "Oh," said the Queen, "like Lewis Carroll." "Worse, Ma'am." "Dear me. Can you get me the diaries?" "I'll add them to our list, Ma'am." Her Majesty closed the door and came back to her desk. "You see, you can't say I don't do my homework, Sir Kevin." Sir Kevin, who had never heard of Kilvert, was unimpressed. The cheese factory is in a new business park sited on reclaimed colliery land. It's revitalized the whole area. "Oh, I'm sure," said the Queen, "but you must admit that the literature is relevant." "I don't know that it is," said Sir Kevin. "The next-door factory where Your Majesty is opening the canteen makes computer components." "Some singing, I suppose," said the Queen. "There will be a choir, Ma'am. There generally is." Sir Kevin had a very muscular face, the Queen thought. He seemed to have muscles in his cheeks, and when he frowned, they rippled. If she were a novelist, she thought, that might be worth writing down. "We must make sure, madam, that we are singing from the same hymn sheet." "In Wales, yes, most certainly. Any news from home? Busy shearing away?" "Not at this time of year, ma'am." "Oh, out to grass." She smiled the wide smile that indicated that the interview was over, and when he turned to bow his head at the door, she was already back in her book, and without looking up, simply murmured, "Sir Kevin," and turned the page.
Grazie a Marco Piovaz per questo nuovo estratto da The Uncommon Reader di Alan Bennett. Vi ricordo la versione in italiano, che è La sovrana lettrice, pubblicato in Italia da Adelphi. Abbiamo ancora 3 episodi nei quali leggere altre pagine da questo racconto breve. Cominceremo a farlo a partire da venerdì prossimo nella nuova puntata dedicata alla letteratura inglese di Lingue Originali, ma io vi ricordo poi l'appuntamento del sabato con la letteratura in lingua tedesca e la nostra Nadia Meroni, e quello della domenica sera con Barbara Marchand per la lettura in lingua francese, sempre alle ore 22. Salutandovi e ringraziandovi per l'ascolto, vi ricordo anche che trovate tutti gli episodi precedenti sul podcast e sul canale YouTube di Caffè Italia. Alla prossima puntata di Lingue Originali.
Lingue Originali.